I've been writing a lot and talking a lot about account-based marketing. And so, I thought that what we might do today is reach out to a guy who, I'm going to say sort of has taken one of the mantles in account-based marketing. Is really talking about it a lot, and obviously thinking about it a lot. So we can dig into it a little bit on video here on the Funnelholic stuff. It's intended to be fun and informative, and I have no doubt it will be, with our guest today, who's Greg Ott from Demandbase. And I have known Greg for years. He's, I would call him a highly versatile sort of marketer and business person. But as I said, him and Demandbase, they've really sort of locked into this idea of account-based marketing. I can tell you, Greg, from now as a consultant, I'm out there talking to people, that this really resonates with people. It feels like there's a movement happening out there, and so I'm excited to talk to you about it. But before we go, just so I don't, no problem, just so I don't hack your bio, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll dig into some of the questions.
Got it. So I'm just kind of a career marketer, kind of more of like, I consider myself a business engineer. I started in B2C with Procter & Gamble, and then really loved kind of smaller, more entrepreneurial companies. And at Demandbase, I run not only marketing, I run product management, I run all of our account management, professional services, and all of our lead qualification as well. So it's really about what do you got to do to help a company grow and grow faster. And I think what's been exciting to me at Demandbase is we kind of get to think about what the next thing is that people ought to be doing, and one of those topics is account-based marketing.
So let's start with that. I actually, I've been writing, as I said, I've been writing some stuff, and I've been trying to sort of wrap my hands around a definition for people, and there's actually a little bit of variance out there, right? You've got the ITSMA. I see a lot of the folks that we know in the sort of marketing automation world using the term. Tell us what your definition of account-based marketing is and how we should be thinking about it.
Well, I think the insight that goes into it is, that I came into was just looking at the massive volume of leads that get generated that go nowhere. And all that wasted energy, both in the marketing dollars used to generate those leads, and then the routing, the follow-up, and the salespeople. You have this organizational tension because I don't like these leads, they're not good enough. And then the insights started to come around, well, if you look at the data can help you predict who's going to buy, because most of your future customers are going to look like the customers who have bought in the past. And that's, if you start to say, what are the attributes of the accounts that are most likely to buy, you start gravitating towards, and I'll help you get there, but you start naturally gravitating towards a more account-based approach. And even with a B2C background that I have, when I was running Classmates.com, I was doing 10,000 credit card transactions a day. In B2B, I was talking with someone last week, and they, we have a lot of transactions. We almost do 150 a quarter, right? And so it's such a precise audience that ends up becoming very valuable and much larger deals. But the account-based approach is trying to say, how do I use data to predict who those next 150 accounts are? And the return on that is, instead of proverbially leaving no stone unturned, you can now predict what are the 20% of stones that are going to have 80% of your future revenue underneath it. And so our definition of account-based marketing simplifies, and it's just spending more of your time and energy, both sales and marketing, against the companies that are most likely to become revenue. And the more you can start to kind of focus on those, you'll realize how much energy you are wasting doing marketing and even sales calls to companies who predictably aren't going to buy. And then the return on that focus really becomes about moving the accounts that are likely to buy more quickly towards revenue and increasing velocity and accelerating growth.
When I'm already breaking my own rule and breaking off my question and answer script. I just wanted to hear from you, when you talk to marketers about this concept, like, what's the common reaction? Is it like, oh yeah, I get a little bit of, well, gosh, we never thought about it scientifically, and in a lot of cases I've found sales is already doing something very similar to that, whether marketing knows about it or not. What's been your experience? And
that's it. I kind of think there's almost these, I kind of say there's three different reactions. There's the ones who are close to their sales and saying, yeah, we've got a named account list. We already have a prioritized target accounts. I have a conversation with my sales team every week, every month, every quarter, whatever it is, and we just talk about who do we sell to. Those are the ones who are like, yeah, of course, we're already doing that. The second one, which is actually kind of interesting, some of the old school guys say, well, that's not a new idea. That was kind of our old school direct response, direct mail days, right? Where you really did. You had a list of, maybe 10,000 companies you were sending stuff to. And I think as the digital media came into play, those became expensive. And the traditional models became expensive and out of date. And digital media especially allowed you to spray broad and wide. And that's the third bucket where you kind of, some of them are the ones where you have to, they kind of tilt their head sideways and say, well, what are you talking about? I just want to get more leads. And you start to realize that more leads doesn't necessarily lead to more revenue. It's getting engagement from the accounts that are most likely to buy. That's what's going to lead to revenue.
Awesome. So let's talk about sort of the 3 or 4 what I would call important elements that you need in order to be successful at account-based marketing. And yes, you are allowed to talk about demand-based in that process because I do. So, yeah. But let's hear kind of when people are successful at account-based marketing, what are the sort of elements that they have in place to be successful?
The first and most fundamental, and it's just everybody should have this, which is that part. Have a conversation with your sales team and define who do we sell to. I am shocked and amazed at how many seemingly sophisticated marketers cannot answer that specific question of what is the profile of companies that buy our stuff. And the principle of account-based marketing comes to basically, if you look at every sales pipeline report, it's organized by account. So how do you figure out what those accounts look like? That's the first step by far and away. The second step then is saying, well, what is their buyer's journey? And the buyer's journey, as you know, and you've written about before, kind of buyer 2.0, they change the way they engage with you. There's a lot more people involved. IDC just did a study that said there's 40% more stakeholders involved in a purchase decision than there were just 3 years ago. And so you've got to plot out your buyer's journey around accounts, which is who are all the people that you need to influence within an account to get to a deal. You're going to have people at the forefront who say, yeah, I'm the decision maker, I'm the buyer. But yeah, there might be 1 or 2 people who are the people who say yes, but there's 7 or 8 people behind them who can say no. And that's a big part about understanding your buyer's journey. And then I think the fourth step is then being able to activate your marketing and focus your marketing more efficiently around the profile of accounts that are likely to buy. And yes, that's where the demand-based technology comes in. Remember, we started with this idea of marketing would be more efficient if marketers spent time and money on accounts that sales is most likely to sell to, and then develop this technology to identify companies in real time on the web and able to take action with those companies. But whether it's using demand-based, but it's starting to activate your marketing programs to be account-centric as opposed to just channel-centric. Channel-centric is really just, here's my trade shows, here's my digital media, here's my outbound phone calls. What account-centric is saying, what are all the touch points I'm trying to have with the accounts I care about? And I like to call it it's more like the dog pile strategy. When you and your brother were young, it's like dog pile on Craig, right? You want your marketing to dog pile on the accounts you care about most. And if you can start to focus those energies, that's where you're going to actually get massive ROI. And then the fourth step, which is really important, is measure. You need account-based metrics. I used to say you can't improve what you cannot measure, but in account-based marketing, you cannot improve what you cannot identify and attribute. What's wonderful is that in account-based marketing, being able to attribute activity and then seeing if those are the same accounts that became closed-won opportunities in your CRM system is a lot more efficient than trying to track a specific lead all the way through this journey and it gets handed off and moved around. You can never track it. But you could track an account. So the fourth step is really about being able to measure the pattern of engagement that works to take an account all the way through the buyer's journey and then repeat the pattern.
Well, I was kind of, my second question was about best practices. It kind of blended there with the elements. Would you, just to sort of keep going on that though, would you add anything from I heard a bunch of best practices in there I already think are great.
I think from a best practices, it's starting to align your media. Like I was talking to one customer, and they said, 85% of our revenue comes from companies in these four verticals that have more than 100 million in revenue. And I'm like, well, why would you spend $1 anywhere else? And they said, well, I didn't know I could, right? So one of the best practices is just helping frame your organization and realize the tool sets that are there. Demand base is one, but there are others. And I think it's realizing that account-based marketing is both a complement and a big extension to the persona-based marketing, right? And I love persona-based marketing. We do that. We have one of the big marketing automation systems, and got my marketing ops team is always cranking through nurture campaigns. But you got to realize that by the time you get someone's name and title, they're already 60 to 70% of the way through the sales process. Serious Decisions will tell you that. So if you're just relying on persona-based marketing, you're too late in the game. And then what we always find is so much of our data is bad. I think I'm talking to the director of IT, but I'm not really. And so those create problems. So I think one of the best practices is realizing that an account-based marketing approach is really a way to really broaden your marketing impact and to really complement your persona-based marketing, because that truly is later in the buyer's journey. So much of that buyer's journey is happening long before you know it. With demand-based, you get to uncover that part of the buyer's journey and influence. The other part that I think is a best practice is marketers thinking of themselves as very proactive, right? I love the discussion about inbound versus outbound because they're all one and the same. The point is you got to go get the people who should become customers. If you just wait for them to find you, guess what? You're going to lose out because your competitors are actually going to go get them. So I think the other part about a best practice is just don't be lazy. Go out and once you know who you sell to, go out and get in front of them. Go out and grab them by the shirt collar and say, hey, you need to know about our products and why they matter to you. And so I think that's another thing you can do more effectively with account-based approach, because you can really get in front of the companies you want to target and then track them through the entire customer lifecycle.
So that was perfect, by the way. One thing I'd add that's not necessarily, well, it's the same thing you just said, is that I think you made a really, really important point, which is by the time the persona is identified, it's like 40% in some cases worse. I saw some data that you may have gathered it from somewhere else, but it's like sometimes up to 60, 70%.
Yeah, Serious Decisions says 67%, IDC says 70%. Forrester, I think, says 40%. The point is, in the way buyers buy today, they're narrowing down the vendors they're going to consider long before they're raising their hand and making themselves known. And that's why that persona-based marketing, it's great, but realize that there's a whole lot about the buyer's journey that happens before you can start on with that.
I love that. That'll be the challenge. You guys are ahead of the game on that, is the tracking the untrackable. Just getting out there with these folks as they're going and doing their thing.
Formerly untrackable.
Formerly untrackable. I apologize. That's right. That's right. One thing before I let you go, just a 2-minute answer on this.
Sure.
What about when account-based marketing doesn't work? Now that you guys have worked with a number of clients on this, any pitfalls or anything that you've seen so far that you might share with the audience just so they can look out for?
The good news is most of the time, account-based marketing works at many layers. One layer that it almost consistently works, it facilitates a dialogue between marketing and sales. It's sales saying, here are the accounts I really think I can sell to. And marketing saying, okay, let me go get them and ripen them for you. And in that respect, even if not every program delivers a certain volume or number of customers, it drives that conversation between marketing and sales. We did these things to these companies, and either this happened or it didn't happen. And even if it didn't happen, having that next conversation with your sales team to say, what have we learned, is a great place for companies to get much better aligned.
Love it. Okay, so see how easy that was? I'm telling you, in the whatever amount, 12 minutes or whatever, I learned a ton. You taught people a ton. It's amazing when guys like me and you are used to like hour-long webinars. And
you're trying to fill in airtime. How do I say something pithy?
You delivered value. I love this stuff. I just want to compliment you guys on what you're doing. As you know, I've been mentioning you guys like crazy. It just makes so much sense to me. Yeah. And I love account-based marketing because I've been a while back when you guys started talking about it, I was like, okay, but then, I started to meet with clients, and sales this is like a dream for sales.
It
I
is.
can't believe it. They're so excited. Marketing's like, I'll help you do what you're supposed to do, and they love it. So I think you're on the cusp of a big movement here. So